The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Well, that didn't go according to plan. Tennessee goes to Gainesville and gets hammered. Just absolutely hammered. We'll discuss Chaz Lanier. Did we get a little too ahead of ourselves in talking about him being Dalton Connect's replacement? Adequate replacement? We'll get into that. Also on the program, Jimmy Heims will join us today. We look forward to visiting with Jimmy each and every Wednesday. And we look forward to having Jimmy more regularly as a writer. We're excited about that as well. So we've got a lot going on the program today. Coming up, we are also going to discuss Amari Jefferson. So the Vols pick up a big commitment in the transfer portal, but they're certainly not done yet. At least you hope so. This day in Tennessee sports history, stat of the day as well. Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Happy Wednesday, Dave.
Happy hump day to you as well. Are you getting Snowmageddon? Because we're supposed to get Snowmageddon in Knoxville on Friday. Who's excited? Hit like and subscribe if you're excited about Snowmageddon.
I'm never excited about snow. But again, when you live outside of the South, you learn that snow is not the fun that everybody thinks it is. Like when I was raised in Memphis.
Snow is not your friend. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. So when I was raised in Memphis, which is even way hotter than Knoxville. So but we would get a snow one day and then it'd melt the next day. So it's like, oh, yay, snow, let's go play. And then it's gone the next day. After moving up north, I realized they show you the first day that it's all coated in snow and pretty. They don't show you day 3 when it's plowed and dirty and nasty. And now the roads are frozen over because the snow melted and refroze and you're going to slip when you walk outside. It's and then you got a kid that you got to watch because, he can't go to school and you got to work while you're watching the kid because he can't go to daycare. It's it is so much more inconvenient than people in the South realize.
Boy, great point by Smoky Mountain Red gets us off and going. The drivability that Dalton Connect have may be the difference between him and Chaz Lanier. But one last thing about the snow. Are you the type of person that goes to the store and stocks up on stuff?
Nope. I walk to the store in the snow, like Luke on Hoth. Yeah, that's right. I do that. I'm tough.
You're an animal. I will tell you what, when I was 19 years old, on my birthday, it was a Snowmageddon, Snowpocalypse, 22 inches, probably before your time. The first time UT had canceled classes in 20 years because some student got shot by a trucker after he threw a snowball at him, all of that. But anyway, I can remember I had a 21-year-old roommate, and it was good that he was 21 and trudging through 2 feet of snow to get what? Well, it would have been beer. So the must-have in a snow is what? Beer?
Alcohol. Liquor.
Okay, beer, liquor. Let's go ahead and add toilet paper and milk. Now, what is the one thing that you go to? We will make it a poll question, and it is time for today's tough question. If you want to vote, go ahead and do it. Now, what's the one thing you have to have, must have in snow? Beer, liquor, toilet paper, or milk? I don't understand why the toilet paper runs out. Steve, I'm dropping your book in the mail today. I go out and ride around too when it snows. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things to do.
It's so regional. So you go down south, people are very excited when it snows, but then you go up north, people are like, man, I'm so excited for a hot day. And people down south are like, yeah, please, you don't know what a hot day is.
That's true. That's true. I had a Yukon that was rear-wheel drive, and you talk about fun. It was a whole lot of fun. It was a sports vehicle, but I have a feeling that a Bronco might be in my future. Let's get to today's tough question.
All right, OJ.
I hadn't even thought of that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm gonna be. Oh, does that make you Al Cowlings?
I will not be driving your getaway car, Dave.
Because my headset came on.
I will not be driving your car for you. Okay, so I'm not.
You know who this is.
I'm not that ride or die.
You know who this is. Bleep it.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, here we go. Let's get off and rolling. I'll let you set it up, Caleb. What is today's tough question? As we ask you to hit like and subscribe, vote on our poll question right now. So, what do we got, Caleb?
Well, let's just start with this. You want to start with Amari Jefferson or Tennessee basketball, or comparing Chaz Lanier to Dalton Connect?
You got the lead. Brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
All right, let's do this. Let's just go ahead and do it. Is Chaz Lanier no Dalton Connect? Has that comparison died after last night's loss to Florida for Tennessee?
Okay, here are my thoughts on that. I think you got a little ahead of the curve on Chaz Lanier. And I think you've been ahead of the curve on a lot of things in a good way. But here's the difference between Chaz Lanier and Dalton Connect. It is the drivability. The fact that he goes to he is able to take it to the rack. It makes defenders play him more honestly. Chaz Lanier appears to be a one-trick pony. He appears to be a guy that's a great shooter, but I think you would agree that Dalton Connect's ability to take it to the rack is something that right now Lanier has not shown us.
I think Lanier can take it to the rack. The difference is Dalton can take it to the rack with a few guys on him, whereas Lanier needs more of the one-on-one ISO to do it. I can't sit there and say he's not Dalton yet, because in circumstances he can be better than Dalton. Here was the problem with last night. One, nobody was hitting from three, not just Chaz Lanier. Igor Milicic was absolutely no help whatsoever. But the other thing we realize is, and this goes to another column you wrote, funny enough, on Off the Hook Sports, Tennessee doesn't have an offensive presence under the basket right now that has to be respected, that could pull somebody away from under the basket. Last year, you talked about Dalton Connect's driving ability, but whether or not it was Jonas Zadu or Toby Awaka, they were such a threat under the basket. If they were under there, they could pull somebody out, and they were so good. And Toby Awaka himself was so good at positioning. Igor will do that because he stretches the floor. He can play at the top of the key. But you notice Igor, Dave, I mean, I think it kind of got exposed last night. He's not great at positioning and out-muscling battles underneath the basket when he runs up against elite talent.
I don't think he's strong enough. And I think that showed up with me a couple times when he tried to finish around the basket. Yeah. So I think you're kind of saying the same thing. This is a guy who needs to hit the weight room in the offseason, no matter if he's coming back to Tennessee or no matter if he's going to the NBA. I just think that the one thing about Dalton Connect that you could tell, I mean, he was a formidable young man. I mean, that guy was thick. How oftentimes do we say a guy comes in, especially at 17 or 18? I remember Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he was so skinny, I didn't think he could play in the NBA. Obviously, I was wrong on that. But you didn't have that with Dalton Connect. He came into Tennessee's program physically ready to play. I'm not sure that's currently the case with Chaz Lanier, Igor. I think they're not as physically developed as Dalton Connect. We'll get your thoughts. Today's question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Give me 60 seconds and we'll get Jimmy Heims here momentarily. Continue to discuss. And the question I have for you, Caleb, was it more about Chaz or was it more about everybody else last night against Florida? Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. All right, what's the biggest problem? The bigger problem, I should say. Is it Chaz or is it the supporting cast of characters?
It's a supporting cast. And something got exposed last night, too, that I didn't think was true. And Dave, can we just point this out?
Yes.
Florida was just straight up more athletic than Tennessee. They were quicker up and down the court. Tennessee could never get positioning underneath the basket because whenever Igor Milicic was going to, by the time he was, Florida had a big man ready to guard him and ready to get positioning. This Tennessee team outside of Felix, I mean, Jemai is not an offensive threat at all on the wing. So Jemai was not recruited to replace Dalton Connect, but he's playing the same position this year on the wing. And one of the rules of a wing, Dave, and you know this is why it's hard to compare Chaz Lanier and Dalton Connect. On the smallest scale, that's like when people compare Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Because LeBron is do it everything. You're right. He can score from anywhere on the court, but he can facilitate when he gets into the middle of the paint. Whereas Michael Jordan was a pure scorer. Chaz Lanier is a pure scorer. That's what he is. But Chaz Lanier has to have other guys able to command a certain amount of attention, including Jemai Mashack. But when Jemai Mashack gets the ball in the middle of the paint, nobody collapses on him because nobody thinks he's an offensive threat.
True. Let's bring Jimmy Heims in here. We had a little bit of trouble connecting, but we love visiting with Jimmy. His appearance brought to you by our friends at Varner Ford. And there he is. Look at him. Jimmy Heims joins us now. Jimmy, I'm going to put you in the middle. I think it looks better that way. How are you, sir?
Dave, I'm doing great. Caleb, how you doing?
Pretty good. He actually did ask me how I'm doing today, Jimmy, for the
good.
first time in a while.
But I didn't.
Make sure I fill in the blank.
But I didn't mean it.
Oh,
I didn't care at all. All right, no, I do. I love Caleb. He's a lifesaver. All right, Jimmy, your impressions of the game last night. Expectations were sky high, undefeated number one team in the nation. You go to Florida, where you think it's the middle of the pack sort of team, and good gravy, that went off the rails quick.
Yeah, I actually thought Florida would beat Tennessee, and I don't know if you said Florida's the middle of the road team in the league. I don't think they are. I think they're really good.
They're not.
Yeah, they're ranked in the top 10. They lost to Kentucky 106-100. But I got to tell you this: somewhere Kevin O'Neill's smiling because he looked at that offense and said, "That's what I ran: pass, miss, pass, miss. And if you score 43 points, that should be good enough to win." So I'm sure Kevin O'Neill out there is giggling somewhere. It was stunning how bad Tennessee played. You trailed 12-0. You never got in the game. You were horrific from the 3-point line. You really never I didn't think they ever really made a run in the second half. And what was odd about that, I don't know the exact numbers. I think Florida's 3 guards, their main starting guards, scored about 75 or 80 points against Kentucky. They scored 32 against Tennessee, and they still blew Tennessee out. And I thought the key for Tennessee would be containing Florida's guards, and they really did a pretty good job of the starters. But I don't know that I've ever seen a Rick Barnes team be that inept on offense. And Caleb, I heard what you said about Jemai Mashack. He has become a liability on offense. Nobody guards him. Nobody respects him. He drives to the basket, and he doesn't look to even shoot most of the time. He kicks it out. He has got to start developing an offensive game, or I don't care how good he is on defense. I think it's going to be tough to give him 25 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Caleb. Go ahead.
Yeah, talking Florida 73-43 win over Tennessee Tuesday night, Tennessee's first loss of the year. After setting a score record for 5 straight weeks at number 1, Jimmy. I think what really stood out to me, and I'm with you. I actually thought Florida would win last night. I don't think anybody would have had an issue with Florida beating Tennessee in Gainesville, given how good they are. That wouldn't have really concerned anybody about a national title. But to lose this way, I think a lot of Tennessee fans thought after last year that what I call the Rick Barnes offensive special would never return, which is, for those who don't know, Rick Barnes is good once every 7 or 8 games of a poor shooting night, and then his team finding no other ways possible to score when they can't hit from 3. And how concerning is it that reared its ugly head again in a game?
Well, it's kind of hard to me. I want to say it's very concerning. And yet, if I step back a little bit, I see a team that was undefeated and had some really nice wins and was ranked number 1 in the country. So is this Ohio State versus Michigan? Is this Alabama at Oklahoma? Just a game where you just played awful. Now, Tennessee's a lot better than what they played against Florida, no question about that. But the thing is, when you look at the vulnerability, when you look at how poorly they shot, it makes you wonder, is that going to be in their future again? What's the next game going to look like? Now, they're going to play a lot better in the next game. But years ago, when they had Grant Williams, that they had trouble shooting from three, they could throw it into Grant Williams, he gets you a basket. And even many times last year when they struggled to score, they just say, all right, everybody get out of the way. Take it over, Dalton Connect. And he did. Well, Lanier has been an excellent player for Tennessee so far, but he was terrible shooting, and he can't take it to the basket like Connect.
Nope.
He tries to sometimes, but he does not have the height or the elevation that Connect gave you, and he's not as good a finisher around the rim. So I do wonder about, are we going to see some more games like this from Tennessee where they shoot poorly? And now, not to score 43 points, but to me, if you score less than 60, you got an issue. And I think there may be some more games like that in Tennessee's future.
Jimmy, there will be a lot of people that are listening to this program or watching this program right now that are not going to like what I have to say. Tennessee missed Jonas Edu last night. If they would have had an offensive player in the post, they could dump it down to, I'm a firm believer going back to the Kevin McHale days, that if your outside shot isn't hitting, you have to have something to go to. Last year, it was Connect taking it to the rack. This year, I think Rick Barnes was thinking it would be dump it down to Jonas, and obviously that didn't happen because he transferred to Arkansas. Am I onto something there, or what do you think?
Well, I'll say this: they didn't miss they do when Tennessee played Arkansas.
They did not.
That's true. But But Jimmy, I will say this: I feel like maybe we overreacted a little bit because he got dominated by Zach Edey. I mean, that's a 2-time NCAA Player of the Year.
Well, I think there was an overreaction because of his lack of effort too. I thought he checked out of that game. He didn't play but 12 minutes. I may be wrong about the minutes. He didn't play a lot, and he got out physical, and it looked like he kind of quit. He shied away, and that's when they went to Estrella, who was much more physical, and against Edey. Now, could Adu have helped him with some inside scoring last night? He probably could have. But he certainly wasn't going to make up 30 points. So, I mean, if they'd had Adu, would they lost by 30? Maybe not. Would they lost by 24? Probably. So I don't think he would have made a significant difference in Tennessee's game last night.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for just a second.
Okay.
I think when you're in basketball, which is such a momentum game,
Mm-hmm.
I think that once things start to go awry, that sometimes you just need a bucket to calm things down. So yes, maybe he only scores 12 points if he's playing last night, but those could have been clutch points to stop Florida's incredible run.
They could have been, but he's not enough of a difference maker to say that would have mattered against Florida. Okay. So that's where I come down on that. Now, offensively, could he have helped him? Yes. I like a lot of things about Akpora, but the one thing offensively about the only thing he gives you is a pick and roll dunk. He is not going to show you much offensive skills other than that. He's not going to post somebody up and hit a hook shot or do something like that. So he can get a rebound dunk or an alley-oop off a pick and roll. So they are a little bit limited some with their inside scoring, in my opinion. And would Adu help with that some? Yes, he would. But again, wouldn't have made a difference last night. Now, the thing about and this goes for most teams, especially really good teams. At some point, aren't you, at least I was, aren't you thinking, okay, at some point, Tennessee's going to make a run against Florida, right? They got to. They can't play that bad in the second half after going, 0 for 14 on threes in the first half, and they never did it. And I thought, boy, what a pathetic performance that was. And you could tell Rick Barnes, he was like, okay.
let's just go home.
Yeah, that's right. This thing's gotten away. Let's go home. So they had no chance, and they never really made that run. I don't want to say they quit. I can't say that there wasn't some effort. I did see some hustle out there, But my goodness, their offensive performance was it's got to be the worst under Rick Barnes. Y'all may have some numbers to support that or argue that, but I think it's the worst offensive performance under Rick Barnes that I've seen.
I want to ask both of you. I want to play game show host here for a second, if that's okay. So I have two questions for both of you, and I want to get your take on this. What was the worst effort, Jonas Edu last year against Purdue and Zach Edey, or the Vols last night? Caleb, you go first.
Jonas Edu last year against Purdue and Zach Edey. Tennessee shot well enough to hang in that game. They did everything they did everything you could have asked for to beat Purdue, and no one asked Jonas Edu to win that battle with Zach Edey. But he wilted because the thing you keep missing, Dave, when you say you get 12 points, he's mentally weak. He's mentally weak. He's not the guy that's going to change the flow of the game, because if the game is going a certain way, as Jimmy said, he's going to check out. That's what happened. That's what he does.
Okay, Jimmy, what do you think?
I think it's they do because I thought he quit.
Okay.
And I didn't necessarily think Tennessee quit. I just think they played poorly, and I do think there's a difference. I didn't see Ziegler loafing. I saw some dumb plays. And by the way, as much as I like Ziegler, about 2 or 3 times a game, he's going to do something that just plain dumb. He's going to dribble into a crowd of people and have a turnover. He's going to throw an alley-oop that hits the backboard. He just – and then he'll make a lot of really good plays. But he needs to – I mean, some of these are like – he shouldn't be doing this for a veteran, a senior, and all-SEC player. He needs to clean it up a little bit and not dribble himself into trouble, which he seems to do multiple times in every game.
Okay,
Jimmy, I've told Dave that he's the Jawan Jennings of Tennessee basketball.
Caleb loves Jawan Jennings like I love mashed potatoes.
Dave thinks Jawan Jennings should have been kicked off the team for that Instagram story. Jimmy, you're on my side, right?
I thought he should have been kicked off the team.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What is it? You two?
Yeah.
You guys.
I did.
Y'all are crazy.
All right.
Well, he quit. Hey, he quit the team twice.
Yeah.
Not once, twice.
But he's the
The
hardest working
second
player
time
I
he
ever saw on
quit
the
is
field.
when I'd have said, "You're out of here."
It's like herding cats all of a sudden. All right, let me ask you this, Jim. Both of you. I'm gonna start with Jimmy this time. If I could get Rick Barnes to drink truth serum, would he take one more year of Dalton Connect and show Chaz Lanier the door? You like that?
That's hot.
I don't know. I think he'd prefer Connect. I think Connect, and I like Lanier a lot. I do think it's interesting that Barnes said that Lanier's a better pure shooter than Connect was. But my God, Connect took over that Auburn game a year ago. Y'all remember that? My goodness.
Oh yeah.
They don't beat Auburn without him having an incredible display. I just think he was a better player. To me, he was a better drought stopper than Lanier. And I like Lanier a lot. And I think it goes back to this. If Connect was struggling from the outside, he could take it to the rack and get a layup. And he was very good at that, and Lanier's not. So I would say he would take Connect, but not by a lot.
Okay, interesting. Today's poll question, Jimmy, we got Snowmageddon coming up. So I'm curious, what's the one thing you have to run to the store to get? We've got beer, liquor, milk, or toilet paper.
Well, if it's going to be a lot of snow, I'm going to go with beer.
All right.
I got a lot of toilet paper.
Never understood the run on toilet paper. Jimmy, can you hang with us a little bit since we had connection issues? I've got to get your thoughts on Amari Jefferson, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Having been in the jewelry industry for a long time in the Knoxville community, I saw a need for a jeweler, a real jeweler.
Our ability to do these designs has really been based on the customers bringing new things in and challenging us as a store. Our goal is not to tell anybody what they want. Our goal is to listen to what they want and then help them get there.
Schedule your consultation today to get your special someone the perfect custom gift just in time for the holidays.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Jimmy, you're going to make me car sick if you keep moving your phone around.
I got your link. Finally.
Did you on the email? We had trouble.
I got 2 of them. They arrived at 10:14 and 10:25.
That's just awesome. Sent them 20 minutes earlier. Thank you, Al Gore, for the just lackluster internet this morning.
He invented that.
He did. He did. Yeah. And he was almost president, too. Amari Jefferson has committed to Tennessee. Tennessee's transfer portal situation is not grand. We'll go through that. But how big of a get is Amari Jefferson, Jimmy?
I think it's big in that they really need receivers. I mean, they lost 5 receivers. And I kind of had an interesting conversation with somebody who said, well, Squirrel White, they won't miss him at all. I said, yeah, you miss him when you got 5 other guys in the portal, and he is your leading returning receiver in terms of catches. He had 67 catches 2 years ago. Let's not forget that. And this past year, he played with a bum shoulder. So I think that impacted him. You got to fortify that position. I think Mike Matthews is going to be a really nice player. I think Staley has a chance to be pretty good. Brazel, I still think he has a chance to be pretty good. But you really needed to have not only quality, but some depth there. And so now here's my concern, though, Dave. My concern is that typically first-year receivers at Tennessee, in particular, freshmen. I know that Jefferson's not a freshman, but transfers have done a little bit better. But new receivers at Tennessee have not prospered. They haven't done anything like what Ryan Williams did at Alabama or like Jeremiah Smith did at Ohio State, who's just brilliant. But those 2 had eye-popping numbers. And Matthews, what do you do? Catch 10 passes? So anyway, my point is with Jefferson, I think it's very important. I think he's a very talented receiver. Tennessee has got to figure out how to get production from their first-year players, whether they're transfers or freshmen at receiver. Brew McCoy had a pretty good first year at Tennessee. Javonte Payton, I think, had maybe 6 touchdown catches, but he didn't catch 30 balls. They got to do a better job of getting their first-year players. And if that's simplifying the offense, because they do a lot of reading, as you know, at the receiver position. The receivers run routes based on the defensive formations or what the defense is doing. Then the quarterback has to read it too. I think they might have to simplify some of that to get more production from first-year players.
That's a great point. Caleb?
Jimmy, okay, so I want to do a quick blame pie last year, and then I'll ask you if Amari Jefferson helps to alleviate any of these issues. Do you think the issue was injuries with Brew McCoy and Squirrel White, which slowed them down? They weren't reading the routes properly? Or was Nico not reading the routes properly? And would Amari Jefferson help with any of this?
I think that the young receivers are not reading it properly. I think that there was an adjustment from Matthews in that regard. I think there was an adjustment from Brazel in that regard. I also don't think Nico played very well the first half of the year. I didn't think he was as accurate as I thought he would be. I didn't think he saw the field as well as he needed to. He didn't look that comfortable to me. So, but I'm going to put most of it on the receivers. I was extremely disappointed in the wide receivers. You saw some drops, not as many as Georgia, but you saw some drops. You also saw, well, you didn't see him getting wide open like they did a couple of years before that in 2022. Now, is that scheme? Is that receivers not running the right route? All the reasons why, I don't know. But I put most of that on the receivers. I think Jefferson can help with that, but he is – and here's the thing. When he comes in, man, they need to get out there and work and drill and get reps with him and get him on the same page with Nico. Because if they don't, then I don't know how productive he's going to be. But I do think he'll help him in the passing game. And I think he's got, as athletic as he is, I think he's got a chance to make some explosive plays as well.
Jimmy, I wrote this, and I adhere to what I learned from you. And those that don't know, Jimmy's been my mentor for a lot of years. I don't call for coaches' jobs, but I have to question the decision by Josh Heupel just to elevate internally guys like Alec Eberle and Joey Halsley, Kelsey Pope. I'm not sure that there's another voice that's being heard like Alex Golish was. And to me, it all falls on Josh Heupel, and that's in and of itself problematic.
I think that they miss Alex Golish from a game planning standpoint, which includes the ability to identify how to exploit a defense. And that includes Alabama's defense in 2022 when Tennessee scored 52 points. He did a great job of isolating, for example, Jalen Hyatt on a safety, and there aren't many safeties that can keep up with him. And you saw receivers running wide open all the time. I think a lot of that was Golish with his game planning. The play calling is Heupel's. So although Halsley is called the offensive coordinator, in my opinion, he's quarterback's coach.
Yep.
I think Heupel's the offensive coordinator. I don't know what Eberle brings to the table. And this may be unfair because I'm saying this from 10,000 feet. If you've got that many receivers transferring out of your program, is there not a problem with your receivers coach, with the relationship and the lack of production he got out of those guys? I got to wonder about that. Now, I'm not in the building, so I don't know. But it does bring a question to my mind about how efficient Kelsey Pope has been as a receivers coach.
Great.
So let's ask the unfortunate question then that we have to ask related to Tennessee, because everybody's excited about landing Amari Jefferson. But he is from Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. People who covered his recruitment said he probably would have gone to Tennessee if not for Nick Saban. Right. So, Jimmy, is Tennessee landing Amari Jefferson more about something special Tennessee's doing at receiver that makes him want to be part of that, or just the fact that Nick Saban retired at Alabama and he was a born and raised Tennessee guy and they got him by default?
I think it was the latter. I think if Saban hadn't retired and he had any production as a freshman, he'd have stayed for whatever reason. And I didn't think Alabama's receivers were great. Did y'all?
No.
So I thought he could have gotten some playing time. I mean, they had one great receiver, Ryan Williams, the freshman. The other guys were okay, but not anything special. So I think if Saban had been there, but I don't know this, but it's conjecture. I think that Amari Jefferson would have been a lot more productive there and would have stayed if Saban had been there. And I think he felt like, okay, I don't fit into what Kalen DeBoer's doing here. And so I need to, and Tennessee was my second choice. So I think that's why he went to Tennessee. I think if Saban had stayed at Alabama, Jefferson would have stayed there as well.
Well, he actually said that. It was quoted in On 3 where he said once Nick Saban left, it kind of got a little murky there, which as a matter of fact, I want to read the quote to you if I can, Jimmy, because I think this says something about Alabama nearly as much as it says something about Tennessee. He told On 3, quote, "Just with Saban retiring and like his whole staff kind of me being close with them and them not being there anymore, I just kind of felt like I wanted to change, and Tennessee was very close to my recruitment out of high school, and I feel very comfortable with the people up at Tennessee. Getting back close to home is kind of what I just wanted to do, and I think that's the best place for me is to be at Tennessee. If I'm an Alabama fan, that quote scares me.
Well, he's not the only one that left Alabama when Saban retired, right?
Right.
They had, was it 25, 27? It was a lot that left Alabama. And Alabama helped Ohio State with Caleb Downs. They helped Texas's receiving core. They helped they helped Tennessee at tight end with Miles Kitselman. So, yeah, they lost some really good players at Alabama, and I don't think that they replaced them in a lot of cases with players that were as good. Hey, the guy that won the Remington Award, Seth McLaughlin at Ohio State, he transferred to from Alabama too. Caleb Downs is the one everybody talks about, but McLaughlin was a great center. So yeah, I think Saban's departure had a lot of impact on transfers, and I don't think Alabama replaced as many good players in the portal. So I think that did hurt them a lot. And here's kind of an interesting side note of that. I was talking to somebody the other day. Because you're playing so many games in college football now with the playoffs, you could end up playing 17 games. Never has depth been more important than college football now. But seldom have you had less depth than now because of the transfer portal.
I think the days of Alabama's dynasty at any school are over. I just don't think you're going to have the depth. Of course, I mean, it's not like even if you had the depth, you're going to win. They win 7 titles. So it's not like that's going to happen anyway. Caleb, I know you got something else for Jimmy before we get him out the door.
Yeah, and Jimmy, I've kind of talked about this, and I don't know if you know, I do these long form videos on Off the Hook, and I did a deep dive to Saban's success last year, and I know you've covered him to a certain degree. How much, we think of Nick Saban as kind of a defensive whiz who kind of lets other guys run the offense when he found an offensive coordinator, but we're seeing all these offensive players who left when Saban left. How much did we underrate Nick Saban as an offensive coach to the degree that I would argue if he wanted to, he could have been an offensive coordinator at any school?
I think he could have been too, because look, first off, he's very smart. And to be frank, he's smarter than most head coaches out there. And as a defensive coordinator, he knows how to take away the offensive strength, right? That was one of the things he did as a head coach / defensive coordinator at Alabama. Therefore, on the flip side, he knows what gives the defense trouble. And I think that he had a lot of input, for example, a year ago with the way they used Jalen Milroe. Because, hey, as you remember, he got benched for South Florida. And then when he came back, he played like gangbusters, but they used him differently. And they used his legs a lot. He ran a lot. And that's what he needed to do to be efficient. So I think Saban was smart enough to recognize that. And I do think he has a lot of input on what they do on offense. Now, he'll turn it over to Sarkisian or a Lane Kiffin, someone like that, but not completely. I would bet you that he's got his input and game planning about, okay, Lane, you're not going to throw it 63 times. We're going to run it, and we're going to do this. So I do think he would have been a good offensive coach because he's such a smart football coach.
Yeah, I was told that it was not unheard of for him to rip up a game plan by a coach on his staff on a Thursday night, defensive or offensive game plan, and just redo it.
And mostly it was probably Kiffin's.
Remember
that wasn't a conversation. That was a butt chewing.
That's right.
Well, I always go back to that Owen SEC title. We always talk about how Tennessee screwed that up so badly, but we never think about the fact that Nick Saban was prepared just like that to go from Rohan Davey to Matt Mock and totally change the offense in the middle of an SEC championship game. I don't know any coach that could have pulled that off.
Well, they did, and Matt Mock must have run 13 quarterback draws.
That's low. No.
Inexplicably, from Tennessee's perspective, they didn't adjust.
Yeah,
I was surprised Tennessee didn't adjust to that.
Okay, so Jimmy, let me ask you this: as of mid-January, are you more or less optimistic about Tennessee's football season? If you give me just a second to think about that, I want to remind you, stop by Dynasty Pools and Spas in Athens. Stop by, free gift from Off the Hook Sports, either a T-shirt or a book, and $500 off spa of your choice, and they include everything. So more or less optimistic than this time last year with Jimmy Heims. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com. So, Jim, more or less optimistic this year as opposed to this time last year about football season?
Less. It's less because I think Tennessee has so many holes to fill. I mean, are they going to be better at wide receiver right now? I'd say no. Are they going to be better on the offensive line where they've lost at least 5 players and 4 starters? No. Are they going to be better at running back without Dylan Sampson? No. Are they going to be better at quarterback with Nico? Yes. But I don't know that he can carry the offense. Defensively, they've lost some really good players. They won't have the depth on the defensive line that they had. I think they're pretty average at linebacker, in part because the linebackers are not very good in pass coverage. I think the secondary can be as good or better than it was. But overall, if you were just to pick numbers from 1 to 10, if I thought last season for Tennessee was an 8 out of 10, right now with this roster, I think it's a 6 or a 7. I don't think roster-wise they're as good. Now, ask me that in about 2 or 3 weeks when they finish in the transfer portal, I may have a different answer. But right now, my answer is I'm not as optimistic.
Yeah, but guys, both of you jump in. Jimmy, we'll let you out of here. But my concern for Tennessee football is they're not hot. They're not sexy right now in the transfer portal. I mean, after the 2022 season, they're scoring 500 million points, and everybody wanted to sign up. And I don't feel that buzz like you did, like I saw the previous couple of years. And some of that was signing Nico as well.
Well, I think there's some truth to that. And I think I give Tennessee a lot of credit for winning 10 games and making the college football playoff, even as flawed as that team was. But boy, that Ohio State game seemed to take a lot of starch out of the season and the way you viewed it. So, yeah, I can't say they've got a lot of momentum. There are teams out there that have signed at least 10 players in the transfer portal. And Tennessee has signed, 2 or 3 in the portal?
Oh, they got 2 right now. They got the Wendell Moe, the offensive lineman out of Arizona.
Amari Jefferson. That's it in the portal.
That's it.
So now, granted, a year ago, most of the people they got in the portal were in January. So there is still time. So that's why I said maybe in 2 or 3 weeks I'd change my opinion. But right now, looking at this roster and looking at the areas where I don't think they'll be as good right now next year as they were this past year, I'm not very optimistic.
Yeah,
Jimmy.
and Jimmy, I just want to point out too, just one thing that's kind of being lost on everybody is how many people who run this veer and shoot offense struggled this past year. I mean, Lincoln Riley runs a similar offense. He was awful this past year. Jeff Levy had a horrible first year at Mississippi State. I'm starting to question whether or not this offense is getting figured out too.
You know, that's possible. I remember talking to a coach. I've done this for years, and I've talked to some SEC coaches in the offseason. And I said, do you think teams will figure out Tennessee's offense? Because most of the time you see that. And his answer was no, not as long as Josh Heupel's there calling plays. So he thinks Heupel can stay a step ahead. But I also think that Heupel cannot stay a step ahead unless he's got quality players at receiver. Well, and I think Nico's going to be a quality player. I think he finished the season strong. But Tennessee is not real good on the offensive line or at wide receiver. And if you're not, I think it makes it a little bit harder, not just a little bit, maybe a lot harder to be as efficient with this offense. They'll probably never score 46 points a game again. But on the flip side, if you can average 38 points, that ain't bad. That's a whole lot better than what Pruitt was doing. But here's the other thing you got to look at, too. What's your SEC scoring average? And that wasn't very good. What was it? 25, 26 points a game. That's not where you want to be.
I wonder what the average number of points at Tennessee.
You mean those onside kicks versus Kent State don't help your playoff odds, guys?
They averaged 62 points against non-conference opponents. And then they averaged about 26 maybe against SEC. And yet they won 10 games and made the college football playoff. So I guess maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit, but that does make you concerned going forward. But I do think this offense has enough answers in it, but you have to have the right personnel and the right play caller to overcome the defense that's catching up with you.
Jimmy, have a blessed day. We appreciate it. I'm sorry to keep you so
guys.
long. Apologize for the connection. And racquetball is going to happen. And I am going to be victorious after Jimmy beat me back in 2000 in Philadelphia at the Women's Final Four with his left hand.
Yep, it was the Liberty Bell was on my side. I cracked the code on Dave Hooker.
Never been so embarrassed in my life. Here I'm what, 10, 15 years younger, and it was close. And Jimmy says, oh, yeah, I'm right-handed. And he had tennis elbow, so he played the left-handed to still beat me.
Yeah, I'm amphibious.
That's right. Breathes underwater. Thank you, Jim.
Have a good day, guys. See ya.
Jimmy Heims is the best. Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? Get beat left-handed.
Yeah, it's pretty darn embarrassing.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Let me ask you, Dave. So when you shower after the racquetball, are you one of those that let it fly in front of everybody, or are you like, no, I got to be private when I'm getting changed?
What kind of question is that?
I'm just asking because it's an 8. Okay, we did a whole joke about it because for you guys who don't remember Trump,
I keep myself covered with a towel at the gym if that's what you're asking.
I do too, but
I'm not one of those dudes that just walks around. You know, actually, I have a relative at my gym that does that, and I see more of him actually this morning. See more of him than I ever wanted to see. Work Truck's all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracted about time. Work Trucks gives you time to less back and forth trips, and trucks pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you, get you back on the road. No dealership run around. If you're a contractor, need to know Work Trucks. That's a fact. Service industry Work Trucks. They carry the absolute best trucks that you have to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go online, worktrucksllc.com. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols, worktrucksllc.com. Coming up on the program, we will visit with Steve Hammer. The Hammer will be bringing it down here momentarily as we look back at Tennessee's lackluster showing at the University of Florida and how disconcerting that is. It's not the end of the world, but it certainly ain't great. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Amari Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at nfc1.com or stop by any one of our 7.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
Welcome back. Steve Hammer will join us here in a matter of moments. The former Vol was on the call with Bob Kessling last night, so we look forward to a little bit of Hammer time. It is time for 4 Downs, and it's brought to you by our fantastic friends at Double D Piping.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All righty. Tennessee has some work to do in the transfer portal as they've got Wendell Hamo and Amari Jefferson now are the only 2 transfers that are committed to Tennessee. So let's take a look at the other positions of need, and let's go ahead and make it a poll question if we can. Caleb, what are you most concerned about for this upcoming season? Defensive line, offensive line, safety, linebacker. Cooper, what should we do if we want to be a part of the program?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, Coop, what down?
Coop here. First down.
Oh, wait, just for those that care, Coop is working in Arizona, and he is just knocking it out of the park. He's going to be a fantastic NFL player. Defensive line. How concerned should Tennessee fans be about the defensive line and the fact that they haven't picked up anybody in the transfer portal to this point to man up front at a position in which the Vols have lost a lot?
Highly concerned. I'm not actually, if it's funny because James Pierce may be their best player. I don't think losing him is their biggest concern. Jordan Ross, Joshua Joseph, guys, they're going to be fine at edge rusher next year. But Jordan Ross is actually better than James Pierce. I'm saying that right now. You heard it here first. I'm going to repeat that. Jordan Ross is better than James Pierce.
Okay. Now, it's interesting to me that James Pierce went from the number 1 pick in the draft, and I think some of us defended him as he's getting there. He's getting close. He's doing all these things. He's got the pressures. But now he barely made ESPN's top 25. So I think you have to look back and say, what happened with that? Because that was supposed to be an elite player that instead was a good player.
What happened is Mel Kiper is lazy, and he probably handles that. And this is the same Mel Kiper that said the Titans should trade up to get Will Levis because he's a rare talent. So that's what happened. We should never listen to ESPN again as long as Mel Kiper is handling their draft analysis.
Mel Kiper wasn't the only one that had him towards the front. And listen, regardless of what you think of him as an athlete, he was completely misused. Completely.
Pierce?
Yes, he dropped into pass coverage way too often. I don't think we know whether or not James Pierce is a better NFL prospect compared to 6 months ago. Because he dropped into coverage too often. The 4-point stance makes absolutely no sense. Can you please tell me, Caleb, when is the last time you have seen an elite pass rusher in a 4-point stance? Try never.
You're right.
Try never.
Didn't they use DeMarcus Ware sometimes in a 4-point stance in Dallas?
Yeah, but he would line up a tackle. That's a good one. But he would line up a tackle from time to time in their pass rush package. So I don't really count that. I'm just talking about a guy that's on the edge and he's lined up in a 4-point stance. And the reason was he couldn't set the edge. That's why. So he had to bear down and get leverage. But that, again, raises the question of, was he not strong enough? Did he not develop enough to be an elite player? And the answer,
Derek has a point. Derek has a point. Derek Barnett did too. As a matter of fact, Darrell Taylor did when Butch Jones's whole 4-3 system had players in a 4-point stance most of the time as edge rushers. Now to the point, I wanted to just address what defensive tackle.
That's Butch Jones.
Very fair point. Defensive line, I just wanted to address though. I think you agree with me, right? They got enough talent at edge rusher. They'll offset James Pierce. The question is, can they offset the defensive tackles? Because losing Amari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, Elijah Simmons, they get Jackson Boyd back, I think. But and Bryson Easton, though, they lose the other 4 guys. That's a lot to offset. And they either need a John Henderson or they need about 5 bodies that they can rotate in and out. One of the two. And they don't have either right now.
Well, that's what they had last year. And it kind of worked. It didn't work against elite competition. Let's move on. As far as replacing Pierce, in retrospect, I don't think there's any challenge. Had you asked me in August, I was like, man, that's going to be a tough guy to replace. But he didn't develop, and he was misused. So replacing that, I don't think is a great challenge.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Right, second down is the offensive line. I will go ahead and tell you, I think the offensive line is going to be better by default. I think that Lance Hurd gets another year. He's healthy, assuming they're healthy. I think that this offensive line will be considerably better. It's maybe where I break with Jimmy a little bit when we talked about it earlier. I think the offensive line, just by maturation, will be better.
Yeah, but I think that we're forgetting that the center calls all the plays on the offensive line. And I think we're going to really underrating how much of a loss Cooper Mays is. I think we think William Satterwhite can replace him and fill that void. But, I mean, Cooper Mays was we saw it last year when Tennessee was without him early in 2023. I mean, the offensive line was totally different. And it's not that the other guys blocking were not good. It's just that Cooper Mays was such a rare. I mean, he really anchored that run game, Dave. We talk about Javonte Spraggins and we talk about Andre Carrick, but I feel like Cooper Mays anchored the run game more than anybody. He understood leverage. And that's going to be – it's so weird to say. I always hated coaches back in the day. I'm sure you remember coaches be like, the center touches the ball every place. Well, they're the most important offensive linemen. And you're like, they sound so dumb when they say that, right? But, it kind of applied at Tennessee, didn't it?
Yeah. That you've got a lot of voices, Caleb. That one might be the most infuriating.
How many coaches would you hear say that? The center touches the ball, so they're more important than the left tackle, which was so stupid back in the day.
Well, that is very stupid.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
That's hella stupid is what that is. Safety. Tennessee needs to address that position, do they not?
They do. They absolutely need to address the safety position. I mean, Christian Harrison obviously entering the transfer portal. If they're going to use Boo Carter more on offense and they're going to need more openings at safety, Dave, I'll just tell you this right up front. I'm going to say something crazy. I think they should just convert fully, not have him play both sides, just fully turn Boo Carter into an offensive player. I think they're wasting him by putting him at nickel, quite honestly. I think he's too good with the ball in his hands.
So you think you would flip him all together? Or
I would flip him all together. He wouldn't
play any defense.
No defense. He should just be the slot receiver. Dave, he is too good with the ball in his hands, and you're using him at nickel. You're not even using him at cornerback. It's one thing if you have a cornerback to be a two-way player, but because cornerbacks kind of lock down the field. But Dave, you answer it for me. With the exception of Eric Berry, most of the time, and with the exception of Tennessee, because of Larry Slade and people like that, most NFL teams or most college football teams, the cornerback has a bigger impact than the safety, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, if I were him, I would want to play corner, but some kids want to punt. I mean, you never know. So, but that's what I would want to play corner because that's the most money. By the way, what should Vols be most concerned about this upcoming season? Defensive line, no votes yet. Offensive line, 82% of the votes. So I'm in the minority. Linebacker, 18%. Safety has yet to receive a vote. Let's change up the poll question. Should Boo Carter be an offensive player, a defensive player, or both? 4 downs. Brought to you by our fantastic friends at Commercial Bank. Bank on it. Tennessee absolutely has to address this next position or there are problems.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right, I think this is the biggest position of concern.
Right, you skipped it down.
Whoa!
Wait, you didn't. Sorry, I'm trying to cheat.
Wow, that hurt.
I just gaslit Dave totally.
Yeah, I'm used to it. All right, so linebacker. I don't have concerns with linebacker. I got concerns with linebacker depth, but if you told me right now Arian Carter and Jeremiah Thielander are healthy for the entire season, I got zero concern.
Yeah, but like, don't you always want another linebacker just for safety? No pun intended, for safety purposes.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
there are other things you want for protection, but sometimes they're not around.
Okay, I know you're not going to get the level of depth like Alabama. I'm not talking Alabama 2020 or anything like that, but in this day and age, can't you have enough depth where if one of your starters goes down, you can replace him? Can't you at least have that?
No. This is the day and age of NIL. Guys are transferring and leaving. You can't. You just answered your own question.
NFL teams have that level of depth. They usually can replace one guy.
Really?
You don't think an NFL?
If a starting quarterback gets hurt, that season's pretty much over.
I mean, the Titans got the number 1 seed in the playoffs after Derrick Henry went down a few years ago, and they still managed to get the number 1 seed in the playoffs.
The show represents yes.
Maybe that shows how overrated the running back position is, to be fair. But
it does. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. By the way, how much did you all pay Tony Pollard? I just heard about that yesterday. He was a solid player for the Cowboys. And didn't you all dump like more cash than is like the gross domestic product of, I don't know, Costa Rica in that Tony Pollard's lap? For a little snapback type. I tell you, I will go ahead and say this. Dylan Sampson will be every bit the player that Tony Pollard has been.
We also took J.C. Latham over Joe.
Agree, disagree. Dylan Sampson will be every bit the player that Tony Pollard is.
Yes, he'll be every bit the player Tony Pollard is. Yes, and Tony Pollard actually was good this year. I have no issues with how Tony Pollard played.
You just paid him too much.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't pay him right.
I mean, like anybody could have done that in the system, but I mean, again, we have the Amy Adams-Strunk may now be on Dan Snyder's level.
It's a lot. Show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Caleb loves the Titans. I love Steve Hammer. We'll connect with him next.
Dave didn't admit he loves the Cowboys.
So you can fall out of love. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Start hour number 2 with this. Bleep you, Al Gore. What'd you do to the internet? Come on. Nobody can get my email. Steve Hammer's joining us now. He managed to work it through, and Jimmy Heims had trouble earlier. I don't know what's wrong with my email, Steve Hammer, but we appreciate you making time. I blame it on Al Gore.
Well, I've heard it said that a good craftsman never blames his tools. So I don't know. I mean,
Steve! Steve dropped the hammer.
If I would have, if Caleb, it's you too. If you would have had the show set up, I could have emailed Steve earlier, and any delay in email would have been fine. So we're
had
both
the show
culpable.
set up half an hour before. This is on you, bro.
Always on me. All right.
Always blame the millennial. Okay.
What, Steve? Let me just ask you. What happened last night?
man, I wished I had a great answer for you. I think it was probably the perfect storm of a team desperate for a win after losing at Rupp Arena by 6, close game, home opener. Number one team in the country is at your place. Rowdy Reptiles are in full effect, in full throat. And a team that came in probably thinking that they were a little bit better than what they are at this point of the season, coupled with the fact that you shoot the ball at the worst clip, percentage-wise, statistically wise, of Coach Barnes's era. You get out-rebounded, which shouldn't happen. I said it on air last night when we were getting pummeled on the glass that, man, Florida's on pace for 55 rebounds, and it came to fruition. You got out-hustled. You got out-toughened. It was just literally the perfect storm. And, oh, by the way, the stalwarts in which you think, you're still going to have your Chaz Lanier show up and knock down some buckets. Zakai's going to knock down some buckets. Igor, no. None of that happened last night. And it was a game in which, quite frankly, I don't know if you even watched the film, because I don't know much. I don't know if you can get anything out of watching the film. Just a terrible, terrible performance by Tennessee last night.
Well, that's kind of the ultimate when you say you shouldn't even watch the film. Steve, I know that Caleb wants to jump in here. What's your Twitter handle, my friend?
That's a great question.
Okay.
I think Hamer Time 1 is my Instagram handle, and I think it's at Stevie_Hamer, my Twitter handle.
All right, you jump in there. Stevie Wonder was the first to come up, and then Stevie Nicks. But we'll get to Stevie Hamer. Go, Caleb.
Stevie Wonder came up first, but he can't see Steve Hamer's Twitter account. Sorry.
There you
I'm
go.
I'm going to hell.
Make Stevie Nicks' drug problem now that we're on the top.
Wow.
I don't think Stevie Wonder's really blind. I think he faked it all. No. Anyway.
Wow.
There's a video of a mic falling and him catching it, guys. And I'm like, how'd you know the mic fell? I'm just saying.
Way off topic.
So, Steve, what are your thoughts on? I called it, and we spoke with Jimmy Heims about this. I call it the Rick Barnes offensive special, which is, this didn't happen last year, but in his past, and it happened last night, once every 9 or 10 games, his offenses just lay an egg. And I guess where I'm going is, I can live with poor shooting. I can live with losing a game. what I think has always been an issue to me with Rick Barnes is that when his offense is in a funk and they're not shooting well, they can't manufacture buckets. And that seemed to return last night. Didn't it seem like they just couldn't even manufacture just a bucket somewhere when they needed to?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I'll go much more on a granular level here, but Tennessee for the last few years has been especially susceptible to the drought in terms of scoring. What you haven't seen thus far this season is an extended drought. Like we've had 2-3 minutes without scoring a bucket, but let's also be honest, the competition that we faced thus far this season, with the exception of Illinois, really hadn't bothered us. You go 2-3 minutes without scoring against a lackluster Virginia team, you're going to be okay. You go 2-3 minutes without scoring against Montana, probably going to be okay. That's not the case against Florida, because when you have a team like Florida that can play stifling defense, that has the physicality in the front court and the back court, then all of a sudden the 2-3 minute drought becomes a 6, 7, 8 minute drought. And you had that happen a couple of times last night. So I think you really got to find some answers in terms of, man, when the chips are down, how do we manufacture a bucket? How do we manufacture getting someone driving downhill, and if not finishing, drawing contact and getting to the rim? I think we saw a few glimpses of that last night with Jamal Meshack turning the corner, but he plays off of 2 feet, which is what everybody wants him to do, and then you don't go up. You all of a sudden you're looking for someone to pass it to, and then now all of a sudden it's shot clock running down, and then you get a desperation 3 attempt, and then the snowball effect occurs. So that's got to be something that you got to find the answers to pretty quickly, because if you don't snap and clear, Texas got news for you. They're pretty good, and they're going to be in desperation mode this Saturday. They lost their home opener to a very good Auburn team. Rick Barnes is coming to town, packed house. They are going to want to get a W this Saturday night.
So, adding this because Jimmy made a joke to us early at the show, but Steve, since you played for him, how proud would your former coach Kevin O'Neill have been of Tennessee's offensive performance last night?
I think he would have said that we performed pretty well, pretty admirably on the offensive end. He probably would have said that we could have played better defensively, but Florida came into the game averaging nearly 90 points a game, and we gave up 73. 71, if you will, if Darlin Stone doesn't commit that foul with 0.8 seconds left, which I don't know why that happened. But, again, all jokes aside, if you were to have told me that Walter Clayton Jr., their best player, second leading scorer in the conference, would be limited early on with 2 fouls and not have a really productive game in terms of offensively, I would have said, man, Tennessee is going to go away with a W tonight, but it just did not happen.
So I want to zone in on a debate we've been having on the show today with a bunch of different people, which is comparing Chaz Lanier to Dalton Knecht, because Dave, and keep in mind, this is the same Dave Hooker that thought Victor Wembanyama was the heir apparent to LeBron James, and he's clearly not, by the way, anybody who's watching him this year.
I didn't say he was the next LeBron James. I said
you thought he was the next in line to be the GOAT of the NBA, and he's nowhere close. But he's not going to be close.
It reminds me of a young Stevie Hammer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you stand on? Dave thinks it's time to stop the Chaz Lanier's this year's Dalton Knecht comparisons. I still think Chaz Lanier could be, even though they're different types of players, as good, as effective. I think it was more about the supporting cast last night. Where do you land on this, Steve?
I think it's a fair comparison with Dalton Knecht and Chaz Lanier. Where I give the nod and where I tell people to kind of hold on with this comparison a little bit is the athleticism. Dalton Connect, and here's where I draw the main difference. You've seen a couple of times this year where Chaz Lanier has turned the corner, maybe curling a screen, getting downhill, and really trying to finish with authority with his right hand. It hadn't worked at all, right? The difference is with Dalton Connect, when he turned the corner, when he curled a screen, when he came downhill, he was finishing with two. And more times than not, he finished over someone, right? So I think there is a little bit of a difference there. I think Chaz has a much quicker release. Chaz almost shoots the ball effortlessly from time to time. Dalton had a much more of a wind up, if you will, to get into the shot pocket. And perhaps the most telling difference is Dalton had the uncanny knack for taking over a game. If Dalton scored 20 points in the first half, he wasn't going to be settling for 25. He wanted to go for 50. Chaz right now has to find an extra gear. Like, I know he had a great game against Baylor where he shot the lights out, but when when the second half came around, I don't know what he ended up with, maybe 3-5 points the rest of the game. If that was Dalton's going out, man, I'm getting 50 tonight. I'm getting 55 tonight. I've got that killer instinct. Now, I say all that to say that I'm not saying Chaz doesn't have that. It's just that in this limited sample size that we've seen thus far this season, Chaz is just easy going, and I'm going to take what the defense gives me. And if I score 25, great. If I score 30, great. I don't know that he has that it factor just yet. Great player, going to be a first-round NBA draft choice. He's going to hopefully lead Tennessee to Elite Eight, Final Four, who knows? But limited sample size, there's some differences between him and Dalton.
How was I alone in this, or did Florida to you look more, and this is a disturbing trend to think about, but did they just look more athletic than Tennessee last night, or was it an effort thing?
Combination of both. Both of those things are true. Florida really athletic, and Florida is blessed with a lot of depth, particularly in their front court. I mean, man, they throw 6'10", they throw 6'11", they throw 7-footer. And oh, by the way, I have never, guys, felt small in my life. I stood next to the 7'9" kid yesterday, and I now know what people look at me when they stand next to me, because it was like, oh my goodness. And so Florida is especially deep. They're tough. They're strong. And one of the things that cannot go unnoticed last night was the physicality on the perimeter. Okay, Illinois was tough on the perimeter too, but Tennessee was still able to turn the corner and get to the 10 when they wanted to. That wasn't the case last night because Zakai got bumped off his spot numerous times. Think of the number of times that our guards went through the paint and got stripped last night. Happened to Zakai several times. Jemai, Igor, you better bring your hard hat when you play Florida, especially getting into the paint, man. It was just a difference maker last night, and we just were not the tougher team, and that was also very, very shocking.
Anything else from you, Caleb, before we let Steve out of here?
Nope, I think I'm mostly good. Well, Steve, were you on that? Because, Dave's on the Dalton Connect's not walking through that door. Were you on the Boston team when Rick Pitino said that, or was that the year after?
That was the year after. That was the year after. Yeah.
Okay.
What was the quote again?
When Rick Pitino's like, Larry Bird's not walking through that door. And
Yeah. Larry Bird's not walking through that door, but Steve Hammer is. That didn't happen.
Hell yeah. I like that. Do you have a story about Larry Bird?
Man, the first time I met Larry Bird, I marveled. We're all in shock, right? You're in awe. You talk about one of the 5, 10 top greatest players, not only in America, but in the world, right? And so you're in awe. So you reach out to shake his hand, and then it was like shaking hands with like this mangled contraption because all of his fingers had been broken and dislocated, and he's just got fingers pointing in every different direction. And it's like, oh, okay, nice to meet you, man. You ever think about maybe like getting this reconstructed or whatever? But it dawns on me that you talk about one of the greatest shooters of all time had fingers just everywhere. I don't even know how he was able to shoot the ball at such an exceedingly good clip. But man, he is just a great guy, phenomenal player, phenomenal coach, phenomenal person.
Great stuff. I'll probably pick your brain about that. We hope to have you as a regular guest. I'll reach out to you. And Stevie, you're one of my all-time favorites. So thank you, sir. Have a very blessed day, a happy new year, and let's go to lunch. How about that?
I'm in, man. I'll be on as much as you would have me, and let's definitely go to lunch, and let's look for brighter days ahead for Tennessee basketball.
I think Stevie's kind of eyeballing Caleb's job. Stevie,
I think it would be your job he's taken.
Oh, well, probably more good information on the show if that were the case. Steve, have a blessed day, sir. We appreciate you.
Hey, you guys too. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Steve. Man, how awesome to see you. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. It is time for the stat of the day. Stat of the day. What do you got, Caleb? What is our stat of the day? And it's brought to you by our fantastic friends at the Hemp House. The Hemp House. Man, if you haven't checked out the Hemp House yet, you need to. They also have the fantastic drinks as well. The Hemp House, your premier hemp dispensary online, and you use the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That is pretty darn awesome. Again, the Hemp House, we greatly appreciate their support. The premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards. HempHouseChatWith2Ts.com. HempHouseChatWith2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Stat of the day. What do you got, Caleb?
This is not a good stat this is not a stat that people are going to like if you're a Tennessee fan, but I'm sorry. I have to.
Son of
a... okay. So Tennessee's loss to Florida last night, to Florida last night was the largest blowout loss for an undefeated number one team since want to know when?
I'm ready.
The 1968 Final Four, when UCLA beat Houston by 32 points. Yeah, it's that bad.
They have Dalton Connect jerseys at Hound Dogs of Knoxville. Champions look good in orange. HDKnoxville.com. HDKnoxville.com.
I did. Sorry, can I just point this out, Dave?
You can point whatever you want out.
I did learn recently that all the books John Wooden was writing and all that, I never prepared for other teams. I did not realize he cheated like nobody's business to get that NBA talent back in the day.
Oh, yeah. He had a guy that is very insulated from. I've heard the same thing about Paul Bear Bryant, that they were really good at insulating themselves, and that really, if they ever ask him, he didn't know. But yeah, they paid Kareem and Bill Walton and all those guys.
And it's like, how much coaching did he during that era for him to be like, I never had to worry about other teams. I just prepared on my team. Like, well,
but he literally didn't know. Did I tell you that I was alongside John Wooden one time in the Rose Bowl?
Really?
Yeah. I regret it to this day. He was not in good shape. He was in a wheelchair and he was kind of laying down, but you could tell that he was still alert. And I regret not saying, Mr. Wooden, my name's Dave. It's nice to meet you. Because I would have to say, I mean, I've met some pretty big names in my life, but that might have been number one. And I kind of chickened out.
Really?
Yeah, but
wow.
I didn't know how healthy he was. But then I saw him talking to somebody else and I really regretted it. But Yeah, that was the orange pants night. I remember texting the late Mike Hamilton during the game when Tennessee played UCLA and saying, orange pants look good. And yeah, they do.
That was the one where
It's
Montgomery
great.
Hardesty averaged 6.5 yards a carry, and Dave Clawson was like, you know what would be real smart if I threw it 35
42 times. I've told you this before. Casey Clawson went to the game and came up to me afterwards. And I said, Case, what'd you think? 42. Yeah, that's a lot of pass attempts. That's the only thing he said because I had to go interview people. I'm here on the West Coast in his hometown. The only thing he says, 42.
Not 22 like the Taylor Swift song, 42.
Good Lord, some recent changes in my life have taken Taylor Swift out of my life, and I can't thank the Lord enough. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Good gosh, I can't. Whew. No more Taylor Swift. I love you, Caleb, and I don't judge you, but that is terrible, terrible music. All right, coming up.
Wrong.
All right. Today's this day in Tennessee sports history. Should Amari Jefferson be allowed to play baseball? What? That'll be what the H. Georgia seems unstoppable in the portal at wide receiver. They're beating the Vols for some key players. Not good. Peak IV Hydration, South Knoxville and Sevierville. Live life to your fullest. Hydrate, rejuvenate, and elevate your health with Peak IV Hydration. PeakIVHydration.com. They've got the patches. They're absolutely unbelievable. Also would remind you to check out Joe Neubert Collision Center. I'll ding, and I'm headed there today, and he's going to take care of me just like he would take care of you. For nearly 50 years, Neubert Collision Center has been East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work, fantastic customer service. Joe Neubert, collision.com, Joe Neubert, collision.com. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
With our brand new location on Amari Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
When Caleb brought this up at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, I thought he was insane. Should Amari Jefferson be allowed to play baseball at Tennessee? Why did you ask that question of me in the early hours of the morning? And why are we asking that question now, Caleb?
So for those who don't know, Amari Jefferson was initially committed to Tennessee before flipping to Alabama a couple of years ago. He had committed to Tennessee as a baseball player specifically, and then he committed to Alabama, and now he's committing back to Tennessee. So everybody is asking, will he be allowed to play baseball? And now that he's joining, I believe in January, will he be allowed to play baseball this year for the defending national champions?
Yeah, I don't see how you could. I mean, obviously the law has sided with you can play whenever you determine it's time to play. So I don't think that's. I don't see any reason why he couldn't play immediately. But here's the problem: the day and age of that is over. Okay, now. I don't believe in specialization in sports until you get to the collegiate level. And for those out there that may have kids that are playing Little League or something like that, I would highly encourage you, and every coach I've ever talked to says, don't specialize in sports until you get to college. And at that point, it's just too competitive. The days of Leonard Scott staying on the field because he's fast, couldn't catch anything, but he's a track athlete too. Those days are over. You're not going to be able to excel in one, which he did in track, and survive in the other, which he did in football. It's just not going to happen, Caleb. I don't see anything changing in that regard. I can remember Leonard Scott would miss time for track, and other guys. I mean, obviously Todd Helton missed time for baseball, but he knew baseball would be where his bread's buttered. I remember those guys going back and forth, and in retrospect, it felt so amateurish. And whether you want to believe it or not, college football is not an amateur sport anymore.
No, it's not. You're nicer than I am. If I'm Josh Heupel, I'm like, hell no, you can't play baseball.
I'm not. No, I'm the same way. I mean, that would be cleared up in his recruitment as a transfer guy. I would say that ain't happening.
Yeah, and let's be clear about this. What did Jimmy Heims just tell us, and what have we talked about? Receivers, it's not just simple route. It's not just simple running a route in this offense of what you're told to run. You have to read the defense and break based on what the defense does. There's a lot of development and just building rapport and repetition to do that, right? You got to get a lot of reps in to do that, to get used to that and understand it. You got to play in the spring, man. You got to practice in the spring. You got to really learn this offense and figure out how to do that. Tennessee needs you. And I'm sorry. You got to play football. Maybe when you pick up the offense like the back of your hand, we'll have a conversation. I still wouldn't do it. But you're making money to play football now. No, sorry. You play football. Football's a revenue-generating sport. Your NIL is based on your ability to play football, not baseball. And you're going to play football. And sorry, that's just the way it is. If you want to play baseball, go play baseball and turn in your jersey. And, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. I mean, I don't think that – because one, Dave, and here's the big part of this, it's not even just the principle of it, because I'm not one who, like, lives and dies by principles, honestly. I mean, principles are, like, you know, they only go as far as the people – as they benefit the people who uphold them. I do believe that if he's playing baseball, he's not going to be useful at receiver because he's really got to pick up this offense. It's very similar to how, I mean, it's the equivalent of when Swiper Boy was out here rapping when he could have been an NBA player if he just put down the mic for a minute.
No, I agree with that too. I think this is the time to specialize and to play baseball. Now, if he's looking at it long term and he says, you know, I may not be – I'm talking about through Amari's head, okay? So work with me. He's got 4 years of eligibility left. He could say to himself, I've got at least 2 years before I would have to make any sort of professional decision. So I'm going to do both because long-term I need to see where I'm going to be. That could be going through his head. And that would be my concern if I'm Josh Heupel, Caleb, because you don't even need to be thinking that way because the football team absolutely needs you. This is not Leonard Scott being on the roster when you have 4 other receivers better than him. He might be one of Tennessee's top 3 receivers and a starter in their 3-man rotation this fall. I mean, this is not an extra pickup for depth.
No, this is not. This was Tennessee needed this guy desperately. So I'm totally with you. And he's got to pick up the offense. Now, people are, yes, it contradicts what Dave and I have said for a while that this offense is very easy to pick up. It's easy for a quarterback to pick up. It's actually probably harder than average for a receiver to pick up, I would say. Wouldn't you agree with that, Dave?
I think it's inordinately hard for a receiver to pick up. And I think Jimmy said something earlier on the program, and Jimmy Heims joins us each and every Wednesday. So be sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you get your notifications and turn your notifications on. But I think it's too complicated it's either too complicated for the receivers in their first year, or Kelsey Pope isn't teaching it correctly. I don't know which it is. And Jimmy brought up a great point. You have receivers that wanted to get out of there. Do they not have a better relationship with Kelsey Pope? But, all of that has nothing to do with how Jefferson can have an impact this season. The key to Jefferson having a big impact this season is he's got to be locked in right now. And if he's not, and he's thinking about baseball, I would have a concern. Now, I will say this. If the young man said, I want to play for this national championship baseball team, and that's the only way I'm coming, I'd take him. Would you take him? If he said, Coach Calhoun, I'm coming to play for your team, but I want to play baseball as well. Take it or leave it. I've got North Carolina who said they'll do it. I've got Miami who said they'll do it. I've got LSU, blah, blah, blah. So it's up to you. I would like to come home.
I'm leaving it. I'm leaving it. And I'll tell you why I'm leaving it.
I'm leaving it too. I'm probably leaving it too.
Yeah. And the reason is, again, it's not a principle thing. I don't think that, and maybe Dave, tell me if I'm overreacting. I don't think Amari Jefferson can possibly be valuable in this offense unless he fully commits to football. Is that fair to say? Like, I think if he's not fully committed to football, I don't think he possibly could pick it up enough to be useful in this offense.
But here, who can? If Jerry Rice shows up, who has come in year one and had a major impact?
Well, some have. Cedric Tillman and Velus Jones Jr. were both really, really good. But they were fully committed. Cedric Tillman was a 1,000-yard receiver Josh Heupel's first year at Tennessee in 2021. Okay. So it can happen, but I think you got to be fully committed. Yeah, you got to be fully committed all in. You can't be playing another sport, is what I mean.
Okay, give me the 4 or 5 best receiver, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, and I'm sorry, but the best receiver performances through a season. Do you want to say, as far as first-year players, you want to say Cedric Tillman?
Cedric Tillman as a first-year player was up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Cedric Tillman benefited from this offense and the fact that nobody knew how to defend it in 2021. Okay.
And also, that's not even a first-year thing because Cedric Tillman was he was a player for Tennessee before then. So when you mean
college level.
Yeah. So are you talking about like first year with the team or first year starter, or how are we doing this
First year with the team.
Okay, well, who's the best season ever for a first-year receiver with a team at Tennessee? I'm trying to think.
I guess you would have Brew McCoy had a solid
year. Brew McCoy had a solid year when
Tillman. But good Lord, he's 38 years old.
Yeah. Juwan Jennings had a good
not ready to contribute. He really is like, 23? If you're not ready to contribute after you've transferred 3 times and
Cordarrelle Patterson, when he was a junior college transfer and went to the offense in 2012, Cordarrelle Patterson was a hell of a receiver that year.
But that's not a Heupel. I'm not only talking
about
Heupel.
No. Yeah, Heupel, there's no first-year guys, but it was Tillman's first year in Heupel's system.
Okay.
And it was the same with Baylor. That year, Javonte Payton. Javonte Payton was a first-year player for Tennessee, transferred from Mississippi State, and Heupel was a first-year head coach. And Javonte Payton actually was very effective that year.
Okay. I'm giving you Payton, a little bit of McCoy because he had to play because Tillman got hurt, and I'm giving you Tillman. Now it's my turn. Mike Matthews, Dante Thornton. I could go on and on and on. But guys that came in and didn't have the impact that we thought. Chris Brazzell did not have the impact that we thought last year. There's a problem with the receivers transitioning from another school to Tennessee.
Hence why they have to be all in on football. That's my point.
Right.
They can't. Because if they're not all in on football, they'll never be effective, right? Ever.
Totally agree.
And so that's why I said leave it.
You can't teach speed. I'm not so sure that Leonard Scott couldn't have bounced around the NFL for 3 or 4 years because he just ran fast if he'd have focused on football.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree.
And he's probably a bad example because he's woefully average at both. I think I think Amari Jefferson will be really good at receiver, so I'm not putting him in that category.
So what about this? Okay, because people are debating this on the message board. So there's this whole issue of I don't like players playing two sports, so they got to take it or leave it. They play one versus Boo Carter saying, I want to play both sides of the ball. Do you say take it or leave it on that? Or is it easier to let a player play both sides of the ball, but stick with football than it is to let them play two sports?
Wow, that's a really good question, Caleb.
I would say at least they're playing the same sport and in pads still out in practice. So
yeah, and you don't miss practice time. That's the thing that was just a part of playing baseball or running track. You
just naturally miss it.
I mean, I think there was one year that the track guys missed. What did they practiced 20 times in the spring? I want to say there was a time where the track guys missed like 12 practices, like more than half. I would have to go back and look that up, but I remember thinking to myself, Leonard Scott is never going to have an impact on this team as long as he's running track. Now, I feel like we're ripping Leonard Scott. Leonard Scott's best option may have been to run track.
Okay? Yeah. I mean, he did help Tennessee win a national championship in track. I think 2002.
Yeah. So I feel like we're kind of knocking Leonard Scott when we don't really need to, but
I mean, there was, there's always like, and this, like, there's always these Tennessee fans of, like, I'm sure it was when Justin Gatlin was there, of Tennessee football fans like, hey, put him on the football team. And it's like, no, he can't play.
Well, let's put it this way. I think we can agree, while we maybe aren't 100% sure that Leonard Scott should have played football or track, I think we can agree he should have picked one.
He should have picked one, and you're right, it should have been, because he wasn't an Olympic gold medalist. So you're right, because track, I don't know why he struggled in track. Is it because he wasn't great off the bounce, great off the jump? Because, I mean, I thought track was just a pure speed sport, and he was a speedster. But
I don't think he was elite fast like Justin Gatlin.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yeah, he should have focused on football.
I mean, you say elite. I mean, he's still faster than 99.9% of the people walking the face of the earth.
Well, yeah, because, like, there's
Justin
standards
Gatlin
here.
Was faster than 99.99999. I mean,
no, I agree.
Yeah.
So it's, he should have focused on it more. And you're right. This would hold Jefferson back, honestly. So I know that Florida State let Jameis Winston play baseball one year, and there was a massive regression in his play the next year, by the way.
But just for the record, let me ask you this: if he said, "I'm not coming," we've had a chance to hash it out. We've had a chance to think it out. And let's make it the poll question. If Amari Jefferson demanded to play baseball, would you take him as a transfer receiver? Portions of the program brought to you by Chattanooga Mortgage. Congratulations. Your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Chat Mortgage, chat with 2 T's, mortgage.com, chat with 2 T's. Mortgage.com. Quality Tire Pros, serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports said, hello, Bo. We certainly appreciate Bo and everything that he does. Hit the like and subscribe button. And if you haven't turned your notifications on, please do so. Coming up, this is something that there are times where I think fans look at other schools and the grass is always greener on the other side. Let's say like some sort of crazy woman who leaves. But the Georgia Bulldogs are doing something that we do need to keep an eye on, because they're beating Tennessee in the transfer portal, and they're beating Tennessee for players that the Vols covet. That is probably a concern. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. It is banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Dave Hooker here for Dynasty Pools and Spas, your home for the best spas and everything you need to jump right in. Relaxing, therapeutic, absolutely. But what sets Dynasty Pools and Spas apart from others is that you get everything with any spa purchase. You get the cover lift, the steps, delivery, and chemicals. When Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers your spa from their Athens location within 125 miles, you'll get your own personal hydrotherapy spa. Mention me, Dave Hooker, or Off the Hook Sports, and get $500 off your top quality new spa. Dynasty Pools and Spas, just off the Athens exit. Drop in and receive a free gift from Off the Hook Sports, Dynasty Pools and Spas. Mention Off the Hook Sports for a drop-in prize and that $500 discount, Dynasty Pools and Spas. To check out some of the Dynasty Spa models and to buy spa chemicals, go to dynastypoolsandspas.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
You know what would do me a absolute solid? I would really like, for those that appreciate what we do, and hopefully you do, I would love for you to tell me about your experiences with some of our advertisers, because that's why we're here. And I want to encourage you to check out Rick Terry Jewelry Design. I know that Valentine's Day is coming up, Mother's Day around the corner. Rick Terry Jewelry Design, they want to be your jeweler. Looking for affordable game day jewelry, they've got that. They're a custom jeweler who can make whatever you want. They've got the 3D printing and everything. It's amazing. A Tennessee tradition. RickTerryJewelry.com. RickTerryJewelry.com. Last look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Caleb, last look is this. And before we get to that, let me reset. Give me an update on the poll question.
If Amari Jefferson demanded to play baseball, would you take him as a transfer wide receiver? Yes, Vols need him. No, all football or bust.
Okay. So what's the percentage again?
77% say yes, Vols need him.
Yeah, breaking with us.
Can we do our this day, by the way, before last look? Because we haven't done this day yet.
Yeah, it's brought to you by Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. What do you got for me, Caleb?
On this day, back in 2000, 25 years ago, Tennessee basketball, led by just one of its greatest coaches of all time, Jerry Green, they beat the LSU Tigers on the road. That resulted in Tennessee sharing the SEC regular season title that year with LSU, Florida, and Kentucky. But because they won the head-to-head, they had the best record in the head-to-head between all four of them, they were considered the actual SEC champions that year, the number one overall seed. So Tennessee had actually won that year their first, by beating LSU, they were able to win their first SEC regular season title in 2000 since 1982. And later that year, they would go on to the Sweet 16, where they would notoriously get bounced out by Julius Peppers.
This day in Tennessee sports history, I still remember if Brendan Haywood hadn't gotten knocked out of that game, then they wouldn't have played Julius Peppers. I mean, they lucked into that. He got in foul trouble, and so they played Peppers, and then Peppers was a terrible matchup. I mean, it was like, I remember sitting next to Mark Packer, local sports broadcaster, and he goes, "Oh no, here it goes."
But you know what? What made it worse was they kept jacking threes. And it was more just, how about you milk the shot clock, because their offense went non-existent. UNC's.
This is going to be really tough to describe, but can I try? There were times, and I covered Jerry Green. I mean, every game, every practice. There were times where you just said, "This team is mailing it in because Jerry Green's the coach," and you could feel it in the auditorium. Like, I can't even completely tell you, and I was there, what happened in that North Carolina game and why they screwed it up so bad, I can just tell you that with about 10 minutes left, you go, ugh, this team's melting in because they're coached by Jerry Green. The UPS Store, Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. The link right down below. They'll help you and your business. Last Look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Tennessee is getting destroyed by Georgia in the transfer portal. How disconcerting should that be for Tennessee's faithful?
Very. Now let's be upfront about this real quick, because you're going to see some people say Georgia's transfer portal ranking is all the way down at number 42. It's not about the transfer portal ranking for schools. It's about how good were they already and are they upgrading. So, for instance, LSU has like the number 1 transfer portal ranking. But Dave, you and I would both agree LSU needs some transfers, right?
Yes.
Georgia just won the SEC title and was an injury at quarterback away from probably going to win the national title. So when they're adding players in the portal, they're going from elite to more elite. And just yesterday, they landed Texas A&M transfer wide receiver Noah Thomas, a standout for A&M, had 39 catches for 574 yards and 8 touchdowns. That comes after they landed the Branch brothers, Zachariah and Zion Branch. That was about really Zachariah Branch to get him. And they landed him from USC at wide receiver. Now, people are going to point out that Anthony Evans, Georgia wide receiver, has entered this transfer portal. I'm going to respond with, so the F what? Okay.
A little strong.
Yeah, I mean, he had 9 catches for 88 yards. Nobody cares that he entered the transfer portal. So, again, Georgia has now all of a sudden has weapons galore on offense, and they still have Kirby Smart coaching that defense. This team looks like it could be in the NIL and transfer portal era. They could be like the old Georgia and Alabama. You know what this is like, Dave? This is like, remember when New England won the Super Bowl in 2003 and then Corey Dillon went and signed with them?
Yes.
That's what this is like at this moment with them adding these receivers.
Well, Corey Dillon had an attitude problem, but it's
he led the league in rushing that next year, though.
A little bit of a reach on a comparison, but okay. Here's where Tennessee is. The Vols have lost 13 players to the transfer portal since the end of the 2024 season. I'm sure they weren't all good players. Tennessee has shown us before that the coaches, they're not afraid to say, it might be time to hit the door. I've had former players reach out to me and let me know that was the case. So, I mean, that's fine. It's different. That used to be a bad thing. It's not a bad thing anymore. Tennessee has had its eye on several top transfers, but a lot have chosen other schools. Florida State receiver Malik Benson went to Oregon. Washington State defensive lineman David Gusta went to Kentucky. Southern California receiver Zachariah Branch went to Georgia. Southern California defensive back Zion Branch went to Georgia. South Dakota State running back Angel Johnson, Washington State, and Tennessee tried to land them all. Now, I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't be overly concerned. Last Look brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Look at me. LASIK, no contacts, no glasses, local vision correction at the absolute highest level.
The first step to better vision is to visit ccteyes.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at CCTI.
Okay, here's why you should not be concerned. And let's make it a poll question. How concerned are you? And you can phrase it however you want to about the transfer portal. Jimmy, I'm going to give you 2 reasons. Jimmy said one thing, Jimmy Heims, earlier in the program, that Tennessee did close strong in the transfer portal last year, and they've closed strong traditionally. But I will take it a step further. That Josh Heupel is smart enough not to take guys that just fill a roster spot. And I think that's been very, very evident in what they've done lately. If you just take a look at Josh Heupel's transfer portal recruiting, it's been pretty phenomenal. Okay, so let's take a look here. Let's go back to 2024. That would have been last year. All right. Let me pull those up. All right. Tommy went in the third. We haven't heard much from him. Jackson Moy played and will be a solid player if he's not already. I think he's pretty solid. Lance Hurd, I believe, will get better. He was injured. Miles Kitzelman was the gem of the class. Jalen McMurray, starter. Chris Brazel, the second, underused, but certainly talented enough. Jermon McCoy, a lockdown corner. Jacoby Thomas, starter. Holden stays. Didn't work out, but I don't think there's any question that he could play at Tennessee's level and at the SEC level. Would you agree with all those assessments?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to 2023. All right. Tennessee in the transfer portal picked up Gabe Judy Lawley. Maybe not the best player, but he's a borderline starter. Played a lot. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. John Campbell Jr. Again, I think if not for the ankle injury, he's way better last year. Definitely an SEC player, right?
Yep.
Okay. Omar Norman Lott, SEC player. Dante Thornton Jr., again, misused, but SEC player. Keenan Pilley, Tennessee starting linebacker before he got hurt twice. Andre Currick, he is a starter for Tennessee at offensive guard. Charles Campbell obviously played, and McAllen Castles was very good as well. Are you keeping track? Because Josh Heupel's hitting percentage is like at 90%. Okay. So that's why you shouldn't worry. Let's take a look at, let's go back one more year. The 2023 class.
You just did the 2023.
Oh, I'm sorry. This would be the 2022 class. Okay. Now, the one that is still a head scratcher, why they took Lynn J. Dixon, who had issues right before camp, was bizarre. But they get Brew McCoy, player, no doubt. Andre Turrentine. That a good pickup?
Dave, I'm going to push totally back on you on
Okay,
this.
well, let's just go through the list first, because it's not great here. His average is going to come down. Andre Turrentine, is that
okay?
Is that a good one or a bad one? Let me just run through the list.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll say average.
Wesley Walker, average.
Average.
Jackson Hanna, Charlie Browder, no. Navy Schuler, know why he's on the team. Gerald Mincy.
Worked out when he was there. Worked out while he was there.
Right. But the bottom line is, the last 2 years, when Josh Heupel has had a pulpit to preach his coaching, is coaching mastery, whatever you want to call it, he's done quite well. He's batted about 90%. Now you go back to when he's trying to rebuild a program that was essentially a dumpster fire, he struggled. So I understand you want to push back, but I'm going to make a strong argument that Tennessee under Josh Heupel is playing things the right way. They may lose. People lose. You lose battles. But you have to be efficient in how you spend these scholarships. And to this point, he's been very much so. So I completely trust him with this upcoming 2025 transfer portal class. And you're looking at me like I've got a horn coming out of my head.
Because it's not, you're looking at it as players that can fill a void and be effective. I'm going to tell you this right up front. It's not about what Tennessee's doing. It doesn't matter what Tennessee's doing to this point. And here's why. They can't just fill voids. The point of this is Georgia just got they're trying to get on Georgia's level. Georgia just got 2 elite playmakers at receiver to a team already loaded with talent. I don't care if Tennessee fills void. Those voids won't be on Georgia's level of talent now. Okay? Next year's offense, Dave. Who's going to have a better offense next year, Georgia or Tennessee? Despite Tennessee having an offensive-minded head coach. Who's going to average more points in SEC play?
Wow. Well, Josh Heupel's going to run it up against non-conference opponents, so I like how you phrased that. Probably Georgia.
And here's the problem. Tennessee is filling needs in the transfer portal, but those needs are not sniffing the talent level of Georgia right now. Georgia is the deepest, most talented team in the transfer portal era, and just added 2 of the best wide receivers in the transfer portal in the nation. This is insane. We're talking about a team that's going to be, and they're a defensive-oriented team. Their defense wasn't the problem for most of this year. Okay, they had issues on offense, but they're loaded to a point of, this is further proof that Tennessee will always be trying to play catch-up with Georgia. They're not even in the same stratosphere right now with Georgia. Okay, Georgia all of a sudden, I think, looks, I got to be honest, I look at Georgia, this would be like if Alabama in the early 2010s during the Nick Saban period when they had a game manager at quarterback and were dominating everybody. Imagine if just randomly Alabama picked up Cam Newton during that time period. I know that's an exaggeration, but like
slightly. Yeah, that's slight exaggeration. Yes, you bring up a good point, and it's scary that Georgia seems to be beating Tennessee at its own game, which was to build within the transfer portal. I'll still stick
on offense specifically.
Yeah, I'll still stick with what I said. I trust Josh Heupel given what he's done the past 2 years. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Tomorrow on the program, I think we're going to have a new special guest as we shift from football to basketball and recruiting. So do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. And if you don't mind, turn your notifications on to be sure when we're out and about, because we've got some exciting things coming down the pike. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. It is banksandjones.com.